So the biblical evidence disagrees with itself. Let's talk in New Testament right now. Jesus's commands to like love your neighbor and or love your enemies as being like important were considered, the highlight, the main thing that you listen to for like the first few hundred years of Christianity, and still continue to be taken seriously by very, very many Christians today.
Mm.
And it's not until a few hundred years after that, particularly with Constantine, but also previously with no, who did I say? Constantine? Not Constantine.
No.
Augustine, but also previously with Cicero and Ambrose, that justifications to like figure out how war and violence could be justified were figured out. That kind of started with some verses in Matthew and Luke that where Jesus says he came not to bring peace but to bring a sword. And that is kind of a way for people to think, hey, what's going on with this violence thing? Because when we think about violence, we often think about the Old Testament, and we'll talk about this. That's wrong. New Testament is also very violent. New Testament is also very pacifist. So using the Bible as justification is, it's always, as always with the Bible, you pick and choose what is, important to you. But by the time of Augustine in the fourth, fifth century, he kind of developed what we know of as just war theory. And that kind of is justification of military use under certain circumstances. That being that it expects to save more lives than it otherwise would have caused to be killed, and that the violence would be approved of by an established authority.
Yeah.
So, and this was expanded on by Aquinas and tons of others throughout the 1600 years since Augustine talked about it. It's very important in like modern, not just theology, but political theory and stuff like that too. And even in like liberal denominations and liberation theology, the church can argue for just revolution. So just war theory is very important. We could have a whole episode on that at some point. It's very important and as a way to kind of justify a necessary war if needed for Christianity.